I think Cosby's the closest. So Cosby is so close that I'm not sure if it's I can't separate the man from the act enough. But at the same time, I feel like I can't put him over Carlin or Pryor. Like, doesn't deserve even if he was the greatest man on earth. Lenny Bruce is sort of that grandfather, the first, and then Seinfeld's the king. So I still feel okay about going with those four over him, even if we took any bias I have against him, because it's hard to separate the man from the whatever. So I still feel okay about it. Robin Williams, one of my issues was I feel like if you think Robin Williams, you think actor, a great actor, by the way, who was very funny, and he did stand-up. And that's a little unfair, because he was a great stand-up.
And that's how he started.
But the legacy is like, well, okay, there's Mount Rushmore, right? Yeah. Like, if you're more known for something else, you better really prove it in the stand-up. And I don't know that he quite deserves that for, but he's close. Steve Martin, kind of a similar thing. Where, like, you sort of evolved into an actor, and then you stopped the craft a little early. He did fill stadiums, though, and I just... Again, you're competing with Jerry Seinfeld. This is a rough competition, so I couldn't put him over that. And Eddie Murphy, maybe an almost equal name to Jerry if we just talked about the 80s. The problem is Jerry is still the relevant man. Eddie feels like a flash in the 80s, disappointing movies in the 90s and 2000s, and then drug issues and disappeared. And that's not, like, again, you're competing against Jerry Seinfeld. So, gonna be rough. Other ones I just want to throw out there. These are the ones that I sort of put in the... I could see them someday getting there, because comedy's still young enough that this is going to change a little more. That was another thing that I was thinking, is like, there are a lot of newer ones. So, like, if you look at some top lists, another questionable human, but Louis C.K. comes up a lot as a future whatever. Not morally questionable. Bill Burr is one of those, like, he seems to be the great of the generation after this moment, century. Sort of, this century so far, Just put a mic in front of Bill Burr. Guy's hysterical. Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and Kevin Hart were other ones. My issues with Chris Rock and Kevin Hart were both... I consider Dave Chappelle more seriously, simply because Kevin Hart and Chris Rock feel to me like stand-up comics that then became actors that were, especially in Kevin Hart's case. I mean, he's in every movie, and that helps his stand-up. More so than he was an elite stand-up that then allowed him to become... And I'm not... Jerry Seinfeld somehow had the greatest sitcom of all time, according to, right, like, I'm not saying it's the actual best, but if you look up greatest sitcom, it's Jerry Seinfeld, and yet he came out of that known as a stand-up comic, not as a comedy show writer, not as even the Seinfeld guy. I mean, to some level, sure, he's the Seinfeld guy, but the fact that he came out of the greatest sitcom ever and you think of him as a stand-up comic, to me, is just so important, whereas Kevin Hart... He hasn't been in any movie that's the greatest, but you think of him as a movie guy. Yeah. And that's... But in the future, I could see... Especially Kevin Hart's pretty young. So some of them I could see having an argument someday, 30 years from now.